Presented by PlayStation Days of Play.
Hey everyone, welcome back to GameSpot's coverage of Summer Game Fest and Play Days. We're here with Hakan from IO Interactive. It's been a big week, a big few weeks for IO. You've got Bond, Hitman, Mind's Eye, Mads out on stage. Switch 2, that old thing. How are you feeling?
Well, it feels like we're very busy.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah, exactly. I would feel really good. It's been a long time coming with Bond. Worked on it for years now, and finally be able to announce it and trailer, and you just hope that there's a good reception and people like what you've been working on, pouring your hopes and dreams into, and seeing the reception has been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And I know the team back home in Denmark and the other studios we have around Europe are all very proud.
Obviously, IO is a well-known studio, but you had a period of time where you kind of gained your independence. So it kind of feels like you're out there in the world on your own, and it's new territory. And then you come out and you're like, we got Bond. How do you even get there? Like, was it just a matter of, everyone you spoke to knew IO and knew that you kind of made these kind of games and were like, perfect, makes sense? Or was there a process where you're like proving yourself to it?
It's been a long journey, from our independence to build up the world of assassination, and that was that's like 13, 14 years ago. The vision for that got established. That we went through that independence and actually got to finish that or realize that has been extremely satisfying. But along the way, I guess people also took notice that we've been doing Asian fantasy for 20 odd years, 25 years now, right? And so I think it was absolutely fantastic that this opportunity happened, right? Like Bond is obviously one of the biggest IPs out there, and we've been doing Asian fantasy for such a long time, and you could say that's a good compatible IP and company. But it's never easy, right? Going from having done Hitman for such a long time and then hitting the note and getting the Bond vibe and feel right has been a good challenge.
How do you approach that balance of creating something that is Bond, that people know what the core of that character is, where at the same time you've been so experienced making Hitman games and Agent 47. What's the line that you can blur? How do you make sure that the properties are unique in their own unique things?
I mean, there's some similarity. Like there's IO Interactive in the background. Like there's a few things we do as a common denominator, I could say. Like what's similar with the IPs is it's globe-trotting fantasy. Yeah. Both for Hitman and for Bond, you get to go places where it's normally restricted for mere mortals like us, right? Get behind the scenes and get that VIP feeling, right? And but I would say Bond is a bit more optimistic universe, and the difference is so that's kind of a globe-trotting thing that's very similar, but the differences are very clear as well. Whereas Hitman is a clear anti-hero, and Bond is he's a hero, right? And Hitman he's a chameleon, and he's actually whoever you want him to be through mechanics also with the disguise gameplay and whatnot, right? But also that he's just taking on these roles and saying what's absolutely efficient and necessary to get the job done. Whereas Bond is, he's a personality, right? There is the whole storytelling and the whole evolution, be that in that journey or him, is built completely differently. So that was both daunting, but also extremely exciting for us to be able to create something like that that's different to what we've been doing before.
Yeah, one of the things that really is interesting to me is, as you mentioned, Agent 47 is very stoic and is, buttoned up, and the humor in Hitman comes from the environments and the scenarios and how you make the most of those to make funny things happen. And whereas in Bond, it's almost the flip of it, where the environments, the situations that you're going into are very serious, but the character is quite humorous and flippant. Kind of how do you approach kind of reversing that, and do you feel a little more freedom or restriction changes to it?
Well, I don't know if it's about freedom or restriction. I think it's just about hitting the note and getting it right because it's different. I would say Hitman, it's quite sinister in its nature. You're an assassin, right? But to kind of alleviate that a bit, like we poured in a lot of, Nordic, Danish dark humor into that, right? And some silliness, right? Like it's very funny. Like his outfits, like it could be flamingo in Miami and stuff like that, right? Or clown with a baseball, and so it's to balance that darkness, because it's like what we really want to do is entertain, right? Whereas with Bond, it's maybe less of that silly humor, more sharp, snap humor, right? And it comes from him, as you say.
Yeah.
Right. It's not as much the environment. The environment is obviously reacting to it, or he's reacting to it, but it's more like Bond's personality, his wits, his sharpness. That's at play.
Right.
I mean, in terms of, when you approach a level in Hitman, you are afforded so much choice with how you tackle your objective. Is that going to be similar in Bond, or is it more of like a set pathway? How is that Sandbox kind of going to apply to Bond?
Well, it's a different IP, and it's a different game. And I know a lot of, like, throughout these years where people were guessing how it's going to be. We also spent a lot of time figuring out what the difference is, or what is the right structure for a Bond game, right? But it's definitely not a reskin of Hitman, right? Like, it's on its own as something that's built to deliver what we hope is going to be the ultimate Bond experience out there, right? So hopefully our fans will see IO Interactive's handiwork there, right? So freedom of approach. There's always different ways to do things. That's true in Bond as well. But Bond is a bit more breeding. It's structured as breeding, right? Like, it can open up, and then it can be a bit more narrow and very bespoke, curated in what spectacular moment we want to tell you or make you do there, because you expect these over the top, also like these fantastic aspirational stunt moments happening as well in Bond, and those are choreographed and curated a bit differently, right? So, and then there's also the fact that the whole story structure on Hitman is a bit more high level, whereas a lot of the story is embedded in the locations and the people you meet. So the locations are more front and center in that way in storytelling, where there's a bit more connected tissue in the story on Bond, right? So it's much more ambitious with cinematics. We are much more ambitious with our action pieces, our features. I think we've created a fantastic seamless combat between dynamic melee combat to range combat, because we want to capture that feeling of Bond being always on the move, always agile, and then being able to make a game where you can also tell, where he can express his charm, his wits in social spaces, right? This is where I also will see the strength of IO Interactive, right? Where you can overcome puzzles and things and manipulate people, bluff, charm. And then, as a difference to Hitman, there's the whole gadgetry. Right, there's the gadgets that you expect from Bond fantasy, and we have some really, really cool, fantastic gadgets in there, and also evolving ones. So I'm excited.
Can Q make a briefcase that homes in on you?
Yeah, maybe there's going to be a little Easter egg or something. We'll see.
I wanted to ask actually about, it's kind of like a business meets creative moment for you as a studio, and you're working with a license. Like, traditional thinking around a license would be you use the most recognizable parts of it, and in the case of Bond, you probably want to pick a Bond that people know, right? Like, you go, oh, if we put Pierce Brosnan in here, we automatically have a built-in audience, but you've chosen to go the other way and get caught up in the casting of Bond kind of cycle that kind of works in the movie. So why did you decide to kind of take this approach instead of relying on, oh, we could have Pierce, we could have Sean Connery, we could have XYZ, Daniel Craig, whatever it may be.
Right. Well, maybe you can call us naive commercially or business-wise, but the passion and being able to pour some of yourself into this is extremely important for us creatively. Like IO has done, we've really been blessed, been able to do 5 original IPs from ground up throughout the years. We're doing our 6th project, Fantasy. So this is our first licensed game. And the only reason, not the only reason, but a big part of the reason we took it is because our partners gave this freedom for us to be able to express ourselves and put some of our fingerprints into this, right? So from the get-go, we didn't want to do a gamification of a movie or interpretation. We really wanted to have a swing at young Bond in origin story, something a bit more dynamic and youthful, something hopefully that the gamers will call their own, and something where we feel we could express ourselves in.
You said something that gamers can call their own. You also have now a connection between your 2 games with something that everyone calls their own, like Le Chiffre is now in Hitman. What came first, the Bond deal or the kind of Le Chiffre connection?
I think we always thought of, because the elusive target concept in Hitman, Will of Assassination has been going on for a long time before the Bond deal. We've always had a few targets in sight of people that we found really cool and interesting. I would say with Mads Mikkelsen, we always had him in our crosshairs, maybe in different concepts and ideas, but post-Bond deal, obviously, that was a fantastic opportunity, and contextually it makes a lot of sense. And we just announced that it's free for people to try out, and it just helps the waiting time a bit. And I think it beautifully ties these things together. And the age of fantasy in gaming, that's what we do, and it's great to kind of share some of these things between our IPs.
Well, speaking of sharing, you're also putting co-op into Hitman. Is that, I mean, I've got a lot of questions. I'm a big Hitman player. Tam and I both are. However, I just how do you kind of build that trust between 2 players to make sure that everyone is going to be working towards the same objective? Or do you imagine this is going to be like an extra dash of chaos when people do get to play together?
Well, I must say, I talked about the Will of Assassination and the vision for this for started 13, 14 years ago. And co-op, honestly, was a part of it. But it just takes time, right? And it's kind of still early days. We are prototyping and figuring out a lot of those things. But it's just, we just believe that the Hitman Sandbox, that is going to be extremely strong and interesting. And when we fool around and discover through production, we really see there's a lot of opportunities for crazy situations and the crazy experiences, also where it goes south, also where it goes wrong, right? So there's just the systems we build, the world we build, the AI and the meticulous machine that runs, it just creates some, I would say, unique moments that we haven't seen in other games yet. So we're really looking forward. Again, there's many things being experimented at right now, but I think that has huge potential. And in terms of Will of Assassination that never sleeps, never ends, that keeps on going, I think this will be a huge booster to that as well. And there's also another thing about Hitman is that, sorry, I'm very passionate about this. There is, it's not something you just pick up necessarily for everyone just to pick up and understand, right? You're like, oh, if you just walk around, just shoot, you're gonna have a hard time.
I mean, you could try it. That
Yeah.
I would not recommend.
Yeah, exactly. So you're gonna have a hard time, right? So sometimes it takes a bit of time to get into it, right? And I know for myself, I know a lot of people are like, hey, you should get into Hitman because once you get it, it's like
Incredible.
It's pretty deep and cool. This is an amazing way to, yank in your friend and like, let me show you Hitman.
Yeah.
Let me show how the ropes work and whatnot. So
I've
it's gonna be
unfriended
amazing.
people on PSN because they beat my score, my time. So I don't know. Maybe
Yeah, I think
we'll figure out. We'll figure out how to
find
do co-op.
people to play with that don't just throw scissors willy-nilly at each other and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I actually want to ask about kind of comparisons between the two projects. Now, obviously, you mentioned Hitman has been going for a really long time. It has got so much legs on it. Do you see Bond having a similar kind of longevity to it, or do you expect it to be shorter because it is a more focused project compared to the openness of Hitman?
I think Bond has a lot of potential here as well. Like we've learned a lot, maintained a lot of knowledge, and from doing what we call single player as a service, doing all these free offerings to keep people, engaged and just expand the universe, right? And I think like we're not talking about that in details yet about Bond, but when we are doing becoming or like an evolving or expanding universe, that's our dream and wish for Bond as well. But first and foremost, we're focusing on this story of this young Bond who is about to embark into the dark world of espionage and his journey there, right? But this is what we do, and you can expect some of these things in Bond to evolve as well. And I would say for Bond, because of the higher fidelity features and new features we added, like you saw from the trailer, maybe the driving.
Yeah.
You can drive exotic cars and motorbikes and all sorts of things, and the gadgets and whatnot, as I mentioned. Those things also introduce for us new ways of doing challenges, so you can spend some time and getting that record back on the leaderboards. Yeah.
Moving between locations is going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
Instead of just running everywhere, like you can go in a car. Well, I'm very excited to see more.
Yeah,
for
me
sure.
too. And I guess final question before we let you go: who's your favorite Bond?
I knew that.
I can't say your own.
I can't say my own.
No.
Say your own.
I think that's it's a hard tie between Sean Connery and Daniel Craig.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
I would say that.
Yeah.
Maybe Sean Connery.
Yeah. I think we're both peers.
We're both
Yeah.
big PS fans over here. Well, thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you.
And for more from Playdays Summer Game Fest, make sure to keep your eyes peeled to GameSpot.